Well, I have another question. I just want to change gears a little bit and bring it up a little forward. Now with the much talk of criminal justice reform, police reform, and those ideas of trying to push forward, two parts to this. I mean, do we play or do we fit into that role, or how do we fit into that role? And what they are bringing to us or offering to us, is it the right way of doing it?
Can I say this first? Because I forget, I'm 64 now. Charles, I think that we play a key role, especially now with what's going on, because people are asking for reforms, but they really don't know what they're asking for. And they're settling for the stuff that politicians want to give them that'll fade away in a couple of years. You know, we should be on a community level engaged and telling them what they should be asking for as far as police reforms go, because who knows better than us? You know? So I think that's something that we definitely need to do. We should be a part of that, because if we don't, you know, they're going to wind up just where they are after they finish spinning their wheels.
So I would say a couple of things. The Grand Council of Guardians many, many years ago had a program called TBOC, Take Back Our Community. And that program, as I understood it from all of you, was designed so that each community uniquely engage the police department, so that you might need an open bodega 24 hours in one neighborhood, in another neighborhood where you have a supermarket or many shops open, you can close them at 8 o'clock. And so it was flexible. It was a living plan that the community participated in. So I think, when I think in terms of police reform, first of all, the reforms that they're putting forth, as Dave said, are foolish and folly. So for example, everyone's screaming that we want no chokeholds. We want to ban chokeholds. Well, half of us got to be crazy if you think a knee on the neck is a chokehold. That's not a chokehold. That's a stress position. But what they do is they get us twisted, knocking at the wrong door, as Automatics was saying, and asking the wrong question. So we're talking about reform on chokeholds, but the man wasn't choked. He was kneed to death. So when I talk to folks around this issue, I say to them, no, we want all stress positions banned. Not just a chokehold or a knee to the neck, but anything that is torturous to the human body, number one. Number two, most of the criminologists that are getting the airwaves and getting time are white men. And so we have to change that dynamic. I know I see Ty Pope on here, who is an NYPD officer, and he's also coming through the same doctoral program that I've graduated from. And so that's the other piece. We have to develop our experts. And so when the expertise calls for Black women on the front line, we need to be man enough to step back and push Black women to the front line and simply stand on the sidelines and support them in any way that they need from us. The other piece of this is that we have to have Black folks coming forward, but we're nervous and we're afraid. And so we have to find the courage to stand up and speak truth to power, especially when it's white folks, right? And so I don't want anybody that's going to be an armchair revolutionary, an internet revolutionary, who's a cold-blooded punk while they're on the police force, and now they find courage and they find God when they get off. It's foolish. And so when we talk about reform, we have to talk about systemic reform. We have to have reforms that are grounded, that are trauma-informed. We have to have reforms that benefit the masses of our people. And the research is out there. The people are out there. We simply have to bring them to the table and find the courage. I say, if you're a punk, it's okay to be a punk. Just give us your punk money. So you may not have the heart to step forward and stand with us in protest and talk about what the reforms are. But if you know you got some money in the bank, send us $1,000 a year so that we at least know that you're invested in our success as a collective.
Rochelle, you want to say something?
Look, it's like wrapping it up from what we all been doing and trying to say. I think that coming together, here it is, the opportunity now. What they're trying to put out there is basically not having a conversation with us. If you are not active in your communities, where they can come to you to ask you questions about things they want to legislate in your community, then you need to think about getting active in your community. Because before city council try to come up with different things in the police department they want to change, our bylaw states that we are the conscience of the justice system. They know that by we're participating in this city. They know that. So when they decide that they want to come up with some legislation, they contact us. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? how are we going to do this? We be like, that's a bunch of crazy. When they was talking about defunding the police, they get on the phone. I said, y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. How are you going to defund the police? The police need to be funded. There are certain things that are modernized in police departments that certain cities need to get. Like if you shoot anywhere, you need to be able to zero in on that location right away. That's technology. That's money. You got to buy that technology. So you got to upgrade your stuff all the time. In Philadelphia, there should not have been a time where everybody should have had tasers. Why are we still filtering that in? That should have been number one. If we're going to stop talking about lethal force, then everybody should have had tasers. They called me, well, what do you think? I said, well, we all should have had tasers. Why are y'all chump changing the department when you're trying to say don't use lethal force? Don't use that type of force. What other force could they use if you're not giving them the other kind of force? So they got to be able to have conversations with you in your city. And if they don't, then you need to go start having conversations with them. That's because right. They're coming up with stuff on the outside as to be looking in when all of y'all are on the inside. And they should be reaching to you for information on criminal justice reform because you worked it, you lived it, you participated in it. That's how they should come. And if they're not, then you need to start knocking on their door and saying, look, we the ones that been involved in this institution. You need to come to us instead of just one little group of people to make these decisions or these legislative decisions that they come up with.
Oh, great, great. I don't want to hog all the questions, but I'm gonna let the other brothers jump in there. Josh, Hakeem, Chris.
I have a question. Good evening, everyone. Great input. This is to all of the panelists. Do you feel that there's a correlation with a lot of young officers that are not getting involved with their respective guardian associations or associations to help them? Do you feel that there's a correlation between them not knowing their history? Do you think that if they knew civil rights history, if they knew their history as a person, which would give them a sense of pride, do you think that would change the membership? Do you think that would increase the membership?
Let me say this. I think educating them on their history would. However, you have to come up with the way to do that. Now, whether it's a newsletter you put together and drop off at the district for them, whether it's a newsletter you put in a box somewhere, whether that's how we came up with the Officer Appreciation Day, because we were going out to the different districts. And though we stand up in front of all of them, we know exactly who we're talking to when we're out there. And then after we give our spill, the sponsor give his spill, they eat food, we pull them to the side and tell them why they need to be a part of this. We got to get creative as to draw membership, because membership is the lifeline of a lot of these organizations. We own our building in the Guardian Civic League. And so therefore bills have to be paid, so membership have to keep coming. Those who retire out, there's a retired membership. You just don't get away. You now got your membership dues may be less, but you just don't get away. But we have to come up with those ideas, and from different organizations, we need to reach out to the different organizations. How did you do that? How did you get into the police academy? How did you, what did you talk about? And give you the curriculum on how to get in there, get into the academy, what you're going to talk about, so that that can be a recruitment tool for you. Yes, they need to be educated. And because a lot of our schools did not have Black history, which is a major tool as far as who we are as Black people, that our children have missed out on, unless you are the parent that made sure that they had that. That's another avenue. You can also, they like law enforcement into the schools. So though the teachers couldn't get that on the curriculum, we can. We can go into the schools and start having conversations with young people. One, we want to get them from thinking that all cops are bad. So now we're showing up saying, yeah, we know that is. We know that is. We go into the schools with the curriculum of what to do and stop by police. That's an in-way into the schools. We want to tell you what to do. But in the meantime, we want to be able to educate you on yourself, who you are, you kings and queens. And we're here to basically help you in those areas. Get them to start liking you. They may not like police, but like you. I just went to a meeting with this shooting, and they was going in on the police department. I mean, going in. But they came all up to me, hugging me. So it's a difference. So when they're like, hey, Rochelle, how you doing? Give me a hug and everything. So they don't see me as the bad cop. They don't see me as the one to kill them. They see me as the person in the community making a difference, showing them a different side of policing. You understand?
Dave, you want to say something, or LACY?
Well, I think that Rochelle kind of said it all. We have to find a way to re-engage with young people on the job and bring them forward. Maybe you know, a cadre of them to disseminate to the rest, because you won't get to the rest of them. You know, a lot of them will see us show up with our gray hair and, you know, it's going bald, and they automatically peg us and go, he's gonna give us this lecture on the way things used to be. But I can only tell you the way things used to be because that's where I was. And I know that I was like that as a youngster too. But going forward, if these institutions are to survive, we definitely got to re-engage young people, because that's, you know, that's all we have left. One of the things I noticed before I retired was that I looked around the room at a NABLEO meeting, and everybody was old. You know, people were older than me, and I was getting ready to retire, and I looked around and everybody in the room was damn near ready to retire. I was like, what's going to happen to this? What's going to happen to this entity? And it's still struggling along, but it's not where it should be. You know, it's not where I envisioned that it could be as a clearinghouse for information to disseminate across the country. And I still hope that, you know, it could be that one day. But, you know, me as a 64-year-old man heading into Medicare, I don't have the energy to do some of the things that probably still need to be done. So what we need to do is find a way to pour into the people that are on this job in a way that they can reflect, you know, the old school aesthetic that we had, and then, you know, couple that with the new school aesthetic that they have. So
Well,
I think that's going to be crucial.
Dave, let me jump in there. Let me just add this piece. Then where did we went wrong, and how do we engage the young people to think the right way, or at least get focused in the right direction?
Okay, well, where we went wrong is we couldn't go anywhere but wrong, because on a local level, we didn't seep all the way down into the local organizations. You had 100 people in the Bridgeport Guardians, maybe 10 of them knew about NABLEO and were engaged to that degree. Everybody, the problem with Black police organizations is participation. You have to find a way to raise participation locally and then work your way up. Because you'll have 80 people that are part of the organization, only 10 of them come to a meeting. And, you know, we met every third Thursday of the month. I saw the same 10 people all the time, and they were engaged. And I could only get the other people engaged when we were doing something social, like a cookout, something where everybody could shine. But to come in and actually do the work was a problem until, like Rochelle said, when one of them got in trouble. Then they would come in, and then they would want you to focus on their problems, because that's how you know, these young people are. You know, when they come forth, you know, you're supposed to realize that they're there and stop what you're doing and focus everything on them. There's got to be a way where we could strike a median, because we need that. And what I see them doing is something that white people could never do. I see young black cops destroying Guardian organizations nowadays because they're not engaged, they're self-absorbed, and they're not looking in the, they don't realize that their strength comes from the community. They don't realize that their strength comes from fellowship with known cops all over the country. And that's what I tried to give them. I remember when Mike Tyson got out of jail, and you and some other cops were on the front page of the Daily News. I ran all over Bridgeport with that picture, saying, I know him. You know, he's involved in law enforcement in New York. He's my brother. You know, we need to be able to, you know, to bring those things forward, so that, again, you know, they'll put their chest out and be proud to be a part of this, because they really don't get it. They don't get it. You know, they're so tied into the social aspect of everything, but they don't realize that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Then let me redirect this. LACY, since founder of BCAP, Black Cops Against Police Brutality. I understood, well, at least I did. I understood what you did during that period of time. Can that formula be reconstructed or re-energized now to try to get the younger people thinking in that the right direction, to get them maybe more involved in the community?
If you can sew testicles onto people, perhaps. The reality is that you asked the question, right? The reality is you know, this isn't the Wizard of Oz. You can't give people hearts of brain and courage. I think that this is where technology comes in. You absolutely, if you can convince them to sign up, just as the businesses do, and convince them to put their name on a dotted line, and you can draw the money out of their account every month, that's a benefit. Because I also don't think that you're going to see people as we saw them going into meetings. They're going to go when it interests them, when it's something of concern to them. And so, for example, when I run the Family Support Organization, one of the things that we do, because I have young people in some of these programs, is we diversify the kind of offerings. Not all of them want to come to a weekly meeting. Not all of them want to come to a female-specific meeting or a male-specific meeting. So I have to give them a cadre of offerings and put staff in place to manage each of them equally, because at the end of the day, they have different interests. These are young people who specifically have short attention spans. Okay, they're not committed to the long haul. Okay, they might have a 2-3 minute attention span. They're used to getting Instagram, Facebook, and whatever else they're getting, TikTok, in a matter of seconds. So that's how they're also getting your news. And so I think I agree with Dave and Rochelle in that we have to respond to their needs and be creative about approaching it. From my vantage point, which is probably why I don't work with older people anymore, right? I've just given up on that whole piece of it. But I think that we've got to go into the areas where we feel that we have a strength. And so we have to institution build. At the end of the day, Snoop Dogg, Puffy, and all of them are old 50-year-old jokers. They just acting young. But what is the gravitating pull for young people toward them, and I don't think they're pedophiles, it's that they have access to wealth, right? So some people want to be influencers. Okay, we want to be change agents. And so I don't want to just be an influencer. We want to make change. And so if you're going to make change, then you have to have the accoutrements, either people power, money power, God's power, but you've got to bring some of that to the table. And so your network is your net worth. And so you, like Dave just talked about, you and Mike Tyson, you got to be able to touch people, put your hands on people, and influence people. Currently working with a young man right now who's got some mental health challenges. Mother's a criminologist, reaches out, says, will you at least talk to him? He wants to be a musician. He wants to be a rapper, specifically at 25. Well, you know, I always ask young people, you want to be a now and later rapper, Snickers rapper, or a Jolly Rancher rapper? Because you got a million people doing what you claim you want to do and putting it on SoundCloud, and it's just a bad thing to pursue in that regard. But I don't discourage them. So I reached out to Naughty by Nature and asked them, listen, I'm going to do next week, can you give me 20 minutes on a Zoom with a young man to at least point him in the right direction? Yes. I reached out to someone from LaFace Records who was a president. Will you give me a few minutes? And my point is, this is the network that we've been able to build as by being police officers. It has its value. All those are people I met in law enforcement. But we got to stay connected, and then we've got to use our resources to strengthen and build each other. Young people will come along when they see the value in it for them, period.
Got you. Rochelle, then I have a question for you, Rochelle. Being the sheriff in Philly, how do you get that face-to-face communication, what we've been talking about, and how do you utilize today's technology along with it, knowing that social media is a new pacifier?
we know social media is the new pacifier, and therefore there's a lot of policy that goes out in dealing with social media, especially for deputies that are under me. I was fortunate. I took people from inside to be in my executive team, and those people had, you know, certain amount of years in the institution. They knew all the players, and they know what the policies and procedures are as far as there. And so we are having conversations with everybody. My chief deputy is now meeting with the command, holding them accountable. And as he holds them accountable, he's holding the younger ones accountable. And so they haven't before met with the sheriff and had a one-on-one conversation that everything you say here is here. And so that we reach out personally and are having these conversations with the younger ones and the older ones. Now, the older ones may still be stuck in the rut, and at some point they will glide out of here into whatever the twilight zone of them. And so now we're training the new ones under this mentality, under this administration, so that these are the people we want in the sheriff department. And the fact that we want you to be able to reach out into communities. We want you to be nicer and gentler to people coming to these courthouses. So me being there now can change that narrative that has been going on for decades there. I deal with those who are in my command. My number 2 spent 26 years in that institution, in the sheriff department. So he knows the players, and he has a really good insight on how to deal with people. And so we've been meeting with commands, and we're meeting with the deputies. There's like the sheriff that's meeting with us, yes. Am I talking to the one-on-one like a human being? Yes. Am I joking with them? Yeah, y'all don't know this because we know this. Yes. We got to come down when we get in these positions from this high horse of I'm just the sheriff and all of y'all are beneath me. No, I'm a human being. You're a human being. Let's have this conversation as to what it is that I expect from you and you expect from me. And here's what I need you to do. And so I get my deputy sheriff coming out volunteering at different food giveaways because I want them to see the humanity in doing something other than just for themselves. I want them to see the humanity and always stop looking for overtime to do something if I'm doing an event out in the community. So I put it out there to them. Those that show up and volunteer their time and work and help in these food giveaways in this pandemic time, those are how I begin to change in the sheriff department. And the Guardians is basically beginning to change that by bringing younger people into these meetings. We got to basically grab a couple of these younger officers, almost like our children, and bring them in and start educating them on basically what it is that these organizations was formed on and what we expect from them out there, and keep them in. Keep them in, get them involved, get them out in the community so they can feel good in their spirit about volunteering, doing something in the community, and not always looking to get paid for. Those are the avenues that I'm taking.
Yeah, I have another question to the panel. Lately, I've been getting a lot of calls from individuals. I mean, they do well in the idea of a promotional test, but then when it's time to sit down and do an oral part where they're trying to be appointed to a higher position or, or picked out for the next level up, which is not a test, it's all about an oral or some kind of performance. I'm hearing now is that a lot of them don't do well on the interview. Where are we lacking in that area?
Okay, I'll jump in on that one real quick. Because I traveled around the country doing just that. I think that that's something that has died. Because in a lot of ways testing has changed. They don't do traditional testing anymore. So that whole idiom is different. But the oral panel of it, or oral portion of it, is still pretty much the same. But since we don't have the cohesion of organizations that we had when we were all on the job, because we were traveling around the country doing it for free. Just bring us in and we would set up oral panel for people that were studying for promotional exams. I don't see that happening anymore. Maybe we need to rethink that or try to set up something where we could go back to that, because that's probably the most important thing in testing. It's probably the easiest thing to overcome when you're prepared for it. Most people test well on paper, and then when you put them in front of a human being, they freeze because they're not used to talking about themselves. They're not used to being put on the spot. They're not used to having to, to think quickly. And actually, they are, but they don't know that they are. Maybe we need to do that.
Yeah, I would just add to that part, and maybe LACY can answer it. Is that, did the dialogue of the language change? That's one of the reasons why?
Well, let me jump in there, because every time we get in somewhere and the bar always get raised. Now we get in, and now we taking the test. Now we start being good at the test taking part. So then they throw something else in there. Now we taking the orals. Now we starting to be good at the oral part, and they're always doing something else in there. What the Guardians has always did, they study for the test, and then once the test is done, then they start the oral part so that they practice talking, practice doing a presentation as far as how to handle those questions step by step when they give it to them. Toastmasters class, public speaking class. Sometimes you got to push them out like the LACY did to me, push you out there and make you start talking so that you can get used to having a conversation with people or be able to present to some folks. We did have that because we used to have that at the conferences that we had. As far as oral presentations, people used to go to that. And so we have to put that back. People think that they can talk to people. They can't, especially when they get in front of a room of people and they have never done that. So Toastmasters class, public speaking class, bring some of us in to have those conversations with folks so that they'll be prepared for the next level of questioning that they throw at us in these orals, because they raise the bar every time. When they see you now, you can take the test, and then they see you can do good in the oral, so then they go raise it again for you to have to jump up to that level. So we have to keep engaging our members who want to be supervisors, who want to take these tests to move up to the next level, that now we either have to help with that education on taking these orals, or they need to take the opportunity and get some help in those areas.
I would simply add, Charles, is that we also have to mentor. And I think that's a lost art form. We're not mentoring. I saw Dr. Charles, she referred to institutionalizing how we behave as Black executives and leaders, and I agree wholeheartedly, and we alluded to some of that. But we're not mentoring young officers. That's a critical component. You know, their white counterparts have what's called legacy. They have it in college, they have it on the police force. And that means that that's so-and-so's child, and we're gonna take care of them at all costs. We don't care how many people they shoot unarmed. We don't care how many people they kill and how much money they steal and how much drugs they snort. That's so-and-so's child, and we're gonna take care of them. Now, I'm not suggesting we do what they do, but I am suggesting that we mentor. So the rookie officer that I brought in while I was in East Orange and community services is now the lieutenant and heading community services on her way to becoming captain. And so it was important to me to not just give her an opportunity to come in as a rookie to work in the chief's office, which is rare, but because I made sergeant and I had a command, I was able to convince the chief to let me bring in younger Black females who weren't getting those opportunities in the past. And so we're creating some of that. Same thing with some of the folks I know in NYPD. We got Dr. Keyshawn Hickman, who's one of my brothers, who was on my committee to help me get my doctorate. And then let's be clear, and I talk about mentoring because the chair of my committee was hell-bent on not letting me get through, period. They sent my paperwork back 5 times, but because he was conscious, and I thank his mother 1,000 times, and he understood the game we were in, he was able to make sure that I got pulled through that door of academia. We have to do that across law enforcement, across the country, when Black officers and Black people get in these executive positions. What happens, these Negroes get in the room and they do a Clarence Thomas. They shut the door that was held open for them and make sure that nobody else comes in so they can be the only Black whatever you are in the room. And I think that we have to de-emphasize the idea that I'm the first Black anything if you're not gonna be for Black people, and unapologetically so.
Hey, Charles, let me jump into just for a second. One of the key things I did when I was training people on how to take promotional exams, and the last thing I did was talk about the oral board. What I would do is I would keep the person outside the room in preparation to come into the oral board. When they came into the room, there'd be 30 people in there, in back of them. Panel of 3 in front of them, 30 people in back of them. So everything that they said was directed toward those 30 people, directed toward those 3 people, but you had 30 people listening to everything that was said. That's awesome pressure. After they finished their oral interview, they could go into a room with 3 people because it was 30 people that were less in that room, and most of them passed. So if anybody's listening, you might want to put that nugget in your training. That worked for me and mine.
Well, well, then what I'll do now is throw back out to the panel before we start to wrap up. What is the future, or what should be, or where we should be at now in the present? I think that's more important. about being now present and what we should be looking at down the road to the future. And I'll throw this out to the panel before we decide to wrap up. Anyone, the ladies first? Go ahead, Rochelle.
I think we need to look at those avenues that we have been neglecting. And at some point, we need to group and come together, because all of us have expertise in a certain area, and we all need to come together to be able to do that. And so that we can give those things that has worked in some cities and maybe it work in other cities, that we have to come together to do this. And if you notice, when we split, things go to the wayside. When we come together, things begin to work out in our benefit. And so I say, put all the nonsense to the side and look at as to why we all started these organizations in the past, why they were started, the fact that we know that they need to continue on, and therefore we have to come together so that we can keep it moving in that fashion. Working together, building on what all of us have put into these organizations. And that's how we keep the future going. We know we need to be here. We know if we go anywhere, then these institutions is going to hell in a handbasket. So we know we do. Now we just have to figure out how we come together to do it.
Dave, you want to jump in?
Well, I think that I agree with everything that Rochelle said. Me, on a personal level, when I retired, I disengaged. I needed to disengage because after being in that fight for 25 years, you know, you just become the fight, and you take the fight into everything you do and everywhere you go. So I lost a little bit of myself. So I went on a quest to find myself, you know. Started baking cakes, and I started doing all these arts and craft things. And like I said, you can see behind me, you know, I always had a love for sneakers. So I started repairing them, restoring them, doing custom work on them. And I just got into me for a minute because I had lost me in the struggle in a lot of ways. The first 2 years I retired, I didn't even do any consultant work or anything like that. I just wanted to, I didn't want to, you know, after being in that regimented life and fighting oppression and racism and discrimination for 25 years, I just needed to get away from it. I'm at a point now where I'm cool with who I am, so I would like to re-engage, but the older me needs to do more research to try to figure out how to re-engage, because if you're socially conscious, you can't just walk away, you know, because when you walk away, you still got your eye is still looking backwards. Yeah. You don't really like what you see. So, and like LACY and Rochelle said, it doesn't make any sense to accumulate all this knowledge and experience and not share it. The key to it all is to try to find a mechanism that will give you the ability to share and still kind of enjoy your retirement. You know, because I mean, right now, I think I'm the only one that's really, really retired, because Rochelle is still working and LACY's still working, but I don't work. You know, I do these things at my leisure. Sometimes they're like work because I'm doing it for 8 or 9 hours, but I get up when I want, I go where I want. And I kind of like that after working since I was 13 years old. But, you know, I'm not done. So I have to find a way for me to re-engage. Maybe something can help me with that.
LACY, you want to jump into that, or you want to? I got another question I want to throw at you right quick, and I think I know for a fact this with you can answer this one, is that with this Trump era going on, and with him pushing particularly white law enforcement to support him, and how he's saying he had their backs and stuff like that, and somewhat of people of color in law enforcement, blacks particularly, have been somewhat shutted out, not included at all. And Trump is constantly pushing that. What message would you give to the groups or to the officers on the street, you know, whether you're a correctional officer, cop, parole officer, or whatever it may be in law enforcement? What would be a good, strong message you would want to give them right now in this era in dealing with Trump? You're muted, brother. There you go.
I would give them the answer that I would give in the previous question in terms of the future. I think that we're at a crossroads for African people, particularly those of us inside of law enforcement and outside. And so it's going to be Darwinism in the survival of the fittest, whether or not we survive. It's either Star Trek, Harriet Tubman, Django, or Madam C.J. Walker. We have to decide. You know, Francis Cress Welsing says in the ISIS papers, The Keys to the Colors, that there's 9 people area activities that are dominated by white supremacy. And so we have to either join these areas, these people areas, and reform them, destroy them, and rebuild them, and then make sure that they're just for people. And they're economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So I know Mr. CB Lynch asked, where do we go? Pick any one of those areas and start doing the work. Any one of those areas, because all of them are dominated by white supremacy. And so what I would say to Black police organizations in the future, you're almost extinct, almost. Because you're, as Ron and them used to say to us years ago, you've made yourself irrelevant to the future of Black people and the future of Black police officers. Now, and if I'm wrong, then prove me wrong by producing the receipts. And the receipts are the young people that are following you. If you profess to be the leader and you look over your shoulder, no one's behind you, you're not leading, you're just taking a walk in the park with 2 or 3 Negroes that happen to like you. So what I would say and suggest is that we have to take a look at ourselves, take a look at what we set out to accomplish, what we've accomplished and what we failed at, and we've got to do something different. It is important. I think it is critically important that we not narrow our focus to simply law enforcement. It is all 9 of those areas, and we have to get busy because we're behind the 8 ball. And as you've said, everybody, every time we get good at something, they change the rules. And so we've got to figure out how do we win at this game, and we can't win at the game if all of us are fighting in the same bucket. We've got to spread it across the board and put our money on all of the damn numbers, but always bet on Black.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. I think today's discussion was great. We're gonna wrap this up because I don't want to hold you up much longer because I know definitely I know Rochelle and DeLacy's real busy. So in a closing message, if you have something you wanted to share to the panel and also to everyone on Facebook, I would love to hear something. Rochelle, we let you go first.
Well, I say we have an opportunity now. We can have a conversation of what went wrong, where we went wrong at, how we went wrong at, but we're at the crossroad where we have an opportunity to build. And so don't focus on everything that went wrong, focus on what went right, learn from what we did wrong, and now let's move forward. So now we have to come up with the path as to moving forward. So take the opportunity, because right now we are, as though it is chaos around everything that goes on. This is an opportunity to recommit and re-engage in every aspect of all those 9, whatever one you want to pick, and I got you, DeLacy, whatever one you want to pick, and however you get involved, get involved. Don't get complacent in thinking that there is nothing that you can do. There is. You have to figure out how to do it. And we are all available to help you figure that out.
Great, thank you. Dave?
Well, Rochelle kind of stole some of my thunder, but let me see if I can regroup. It's been a while. I always had the bad fortune of having to speak after Rochelle and LACY. They may be up my game, but it wasn't easy because they're both gifted speakers. But to the people that are watching, I want to say to you, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying engaged. I hope that we imparted some knowledge to you. I hope that we fired you up to a degree. Those of you that are still in law enforcement, to continue this battle, because it's a battle that you don't really get rest from. You get a little respite, but you don't really get any rest. Like Rochelle said, me, DeLacy, Rochelle, and other people on this panel, we've never had a problem traveling. And we've been to most of the cities that encompass NABLEO and NBPA too. We never mind traveling, and we never mind sharing our experience and education. So what I hope you do, the people that are still in the struggle, that are still fighting this thing, you need to engage us, because the circumstances that you're dealing with are very unique. You know, we didn't have a President Trump. We didn't have a Justice Department that was trying to suppress making things better for Black cops. I seen all of this coming. So when it was time for me to retire, I didn't have a problem with it, because you could just do this stuff until the day you die. It's your fight now. And I'm speaking to every last one of you. This is your fight now. But you've got some elders. You know, we're the elders now. Picture that. You know, I remember coming into this, I still had, you know, curly black hair and everything else. And I was 40 pounds lighter and full of energy and all of that. The things that I've learned over the years and the experiences that I've had, you know, I would love to share. And I know that Rochelle and LACY feel the same way, and Charles as well. So engage us. You know, we're not dead. You know, we're just busy. But we'll stop what we're doing to make sure that you're okay, because we're communal in that regard, and we love this employee that we have. So, you know, engage us, stay in contact with us, bounce questions off of us, invite us to your cities, and we'll try as best we can to help you solve your problems. We love you. We look at you fondly, and you know we're honored to be a part of the service that you're now continuing.
Well, and LACY, I just want to add another little piece for you, and then you can close this up. Because I see one good question came across. It was about the idea of us fitting into law enforcement, and how can we get a hold of trying to transform it, along with your thoughts.
I don't think we have to fit into law enforcement. I think we need to learn how to be our authentic selves in the space that we're in. We need to be cognizant of the historical perspective of law enforcement. In the South, there were slave catchers. In the North, they were union busters. And so when you have the police operating out of a model of Sir Robert Peel, 1829, the Metropolitan Police, and he learned how to structure that based on how they oppressed the Irish, at the end of the day, this is not about us fitting into that structure. This is about whether or not we want to make change, whether or not we want to stand and do what we lied on the exam, and when we got the job and said, protect and serve the public, then do that, damn it. Identify one aspect of law enforcement that you want to be great at and spend the rest of your life and the rest of your career being great at that. Just one aspect, not all of it, just one piece of it, and give it all you've got. I think that that's the other piece. The old people talked about having stick-to-itiveness. We've got to have that. And at the end of the day, hopefully that'll get you where you want to be. And then finally, I would simply say build relationships, meaningful relationships with people who are doing the things that you want to do, because they exist. We just have to go pull them out.
Great. LACY, what can you share with everyone? How can they reach out, or what can they do to reach out to you to communicate?
Sure. My website is drdelacydavis.com. That's DRDELACY Davis.com. DRDELACY Davis.com. And my email, drdelacydavis@gmail. DRDELACY Davis@gmail.
And Rochelle?
You can get me at Rochelle, ROCHELLE. The number's 369 at AOL.com. Rochelle, ROCHELLE, 369 at AOL.com.
And Dave?
Personal telephone number is area code 203-258-0134. I also have a business number for my consultant business, and that's area code 203-0619. I'm also on Facebook, David Daniels III. I also have a few other pages, but my email address is my name, all lowercase letters, DAVIDDANIELSIII @hotmail.com. I'd be honored to hear from you.
Great, thank you, thank you. Want to thank everyone for listening in. I want to thank everybody for being part of the discussion. I think the panel deserve roaring hands of applause. It was a great discussion tonight. Please, everyone, reach out to these individuals. These people I talk to all the time, and they have a wealth of knowledge to offer. Want to thank everyone. I want to thank my co-host, Chris Lynch, Gerard Hakeem. You want to raise your hands, fellas? And Mr. Joshua Currington. You want to say something before you finish? Before we finish?
Josh?
Yes, this coming Tuesday, I know I'm talking to the converted, as we know, is election day. They already started early voting. Please tell your friends and your families, those who have not yet voted, to please get out there and vote. Now, as NTA Gardens, we can't do an endorsement, but as Joshua Curitan saying, we see what's been going on for the last 4 years. Common sense tell you who to vote for. And that's basically it.
Hakeem?
I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank everyone for participating. I think all of us left with something good. And we ask that you just share this on all of your social media. I'm trying to embrace it. I'm trying to embrace this social media thing. Please share this on your social media so that we can get the information out there and really try to get these young officers back on the track for our survivability within law enforcement, all agencies, local and federal.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you guys. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's enlightening, a lot of information here. Like someone put in the comments, it took me back every time, back to the NBPA days when we was traveling all around the place, fighting for the cause, trying to encourage and upbuild our Black brothers and sisters out there. Man, right now we just at a point where we're just trying to share this information and try to bring up those ones that's coming down, because we work too hard for this legacy. We work too hard for this to just let it go to the wayside, let it be thrown away. So it's incumbent upon us to like try to pass it on, get these young folks as engaged as we possibly can so we can keep it going what we built. So it's really great. Thank you once again for joining us.
Yeah, and thank everyone again. Next week, we will be talking to some other people who are actually active, who are doing some things in their fraternal groups, and some of the new ideas or what is being done presently. So everyone, please stay in tune, reach out. Everyone is welcome to be part of the discussion. If you want, you can definitely email any of us or reach out to us about getting some questions out earlier if you want, because we definitely need to hear from the panelists. So on that note,
I just want to add one more thing. When LACY was saying that with some of these organizations, when you talk about when you turn around and look and see who you have behind you, it brought back that memory back when I think it was 91 or 95 when we were in that room. When we had to make that decision, LACY was like, we out of here. And everybody turned around and was like, let's go. And we went, we followed him out that room.
Well,
it's a lot.
We'll put it this way. I'll say this. I mean, for those who do step up and promise they will do things, I have seen LACY literally go back and ask for an award back when we honored someone. Particularly, you blew it up.
I remember that.
The superstar and dropped the ball, and then we literally had to go right in front of his office and say, "Give it back, because you don't deserve it." Correct?
I remember that.
Yeah. So on that note, everyone, good night.
Good night. Take care, everybody.
Peace.